G'day, everyone, and welcome to the mock draft of the first round in the NFL for 2022. Smithy, the draft guru, he is who you can see with the headphones wrapped around him. He is going to go through who he thinks is going with the first 32 picks in the draft. The NFL draft's only a little bit away, mate, and it's fair to say you've had some sleepless nights in coming up with this.
Pick the eyes out of this draft. I was just saying to you off camera that I had memorized the draft order of the first round. So a lot of work and a lot of different combinations have gone into it, but I'm pretty happy with what I've finished with.
That's all. Yeah, that's all we can ask for, mate. You got a bit of a clipped wing at the moment, which the podcast listeners will be knowing about. So he hasn't had much else on. So he's been able to, like you said, pick the absolute eyes out of it. I'll be here to guide us along the way, mate. But before we get into it, a couple of sort of pre-draft questions. Who are you looking at? And it doesn't necessarily need to be the first round only, but what franchise are you looking at that you think needs to nail this draft more than most?
I think, and it might be seen as sitting on the fence because I'm going to pick two franchises, but it's the city of New York, the Giants and the Jets. They've both got two picks inside the top 10 each. They are tied for the worst record combined over the last 5 years in the NFL. So that whole city has been deprived of good football for the last 5 years. They've both got really good draft hands at the moment. So they really need to nail the top 10 and then continue it out through the later picks and later rounds because there needs to be some serious change in New York with their football situation at the moment.
All right, mate. The city of New York, they need to get their shit together. Now, how much does the Twitter rumor mill, which is, let's face it, vast when it comes to the NFL, how much of an impact does that have on your decision-making? And how much do you think it'll affect people coming into the draft thinking they know who they want for their team and they might end up with someone else?
Yeah, it's sort of one of those things where you got to keep across most of it, but you sort of have your certain people who you buy into more than others, and it's sort of it's a tough thing because a lot of people throw out rumors this time, especially in this week leading up to the draft. There's just rumors flying around everywhere. But if you've developed an opinion on a team and a player matching up nicely, I think you got to stick fat with that. And it's probably, since I've been following the NFL and the NFL draft more specifically, it is by far the hardest year to predict what's going to happen. There could be 50 players worthy of a first round pick this year, but obviously only 32 are going to make that. So very tough to, sort of decipher where everyone's going to end up and predict what's going to happen. But I'm happy with what I've landed on and cementing that going into the draft day.
And that's the key there. So if you enjoy the content, mate, we need people to get around and subscribe. We would really appreciate that with more stuff coming. And the people on YouTube, they've barely been introduced to the People's Prince yet. So stick around for that because our man, oh boy, you can get loose nearly a year into this. He was in elite form before today as well. He couldn't be with us due to work commitments. And our man's got the dreaded COVID. But oh boy, the fans have got a lot to look forward to with him.
Oh, yeah, it's always a good time with the People's Prince TD in. So I think YouTube will love him.
Yep, shout out to the great man. All right, let's finally get into it, mate. For the second straight year, the Jags have got pick one.
Yeah, so with pick one, I've got them taking Trayvon Walker, edge out of Georgia. I just think that the Jags and specifically their GM have a pattern of drafting athletes over football players. So Trayvon Walker's athletic testing at the NFL Combine was off the charts. He's one of the biggest athletic freaks in the draft, and he's worked his way steadily up the boards. There's a lot of buzz about him going one, and I think it fits Jacksonville's pattern of drafting. So I think he goes number one to the Jags.
Beautiful. I like it. And fingers crossed the Jags fans will too after they've had a pretty busy offseason as well. So that would be a nice little cherry on top of their offseason. The Lions, mate, it feels like they're here most years, and I say that with respect to the Lions fans. But where do you think they go here?
I think this is a nice little storyline, actually, and it's Aiden Hutchinson, edge out of Michigan, stays in state. Yeah, he stays in state. He was the consensus number one pick for over a month, but I think the Trayvon Walker hype is real, and Hutchinson might slide to 2, but the Lions will be very happy. He seems to fit Dan Campbell and what he wants to get out of this group culture-wise. So I think Detroit would be stoked with this pick.
Is it a case of they're glad they've got pick 2 because they can just take whoever Jacksonville doesn't? Do you think the pressure is on Jacksonville to pick the better out of the 2?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the Lions are in a win-win situation because they just get whoever the first pick don't get. And if it works out well for them, they can say they drafted well. If it doesn't, they say the best player got taken before them. So they're in a win-win situation.
There you go. Some positive for Detroit. That wasn't on my 2022 NFL bingo card, but there we go. Let's move on to the Texans, mate, who they had a bit of a clean out in the offseason and are going to need a top-end talent to help rejuvenate their roster.
Yeah, I think it's Ika Mekwonu, offensive tackle out of North Carolina State. And he is just a plug-and-play offensive line starter. He played offensive guard last year, slid over the tackle last year at NC State and did a really good job. They're pretty good at tackle at the moment, the Texans. So if they want to play him at guard, they can. If they want to move on from one of their tackles and plug him in there, they can. I think he's very versatile. And with the Texans situation at the moment, they've got to pick best player available. And I think Ekwonu is the best offensive lineman in this draft.
Bang, you've got me sold, mate. Now, you talked about New York need to get this right. They've got the next 2 picks, obviously split between the Jets and the Giants. Let's go with the Jets first.
Yeah, I've gone a bit of a curveball here.
Oh boy, that's what we like.
I've heard some rumblings and some whispers on Twitter from people that I really respect that say the Jets may pick Jermaine Johnson here, edge from Florida State. Probably not the most hyped player in the draft, but he's one of the safest picks in this first round. He's experienced. He was a senior last year at Florida State, was unstoppable at the Senior Bowl. All of his personality and sort of traits off the field have risen him up boards, and the word on the street is that the Jets really like him. So I think Jermaine Johnson goes here at 4.
Bang, you've heard it here first. The Giants at 5. It's astonishing that they've got the second most expensive wide receiver room so far, which is astounding. But I'll tell you what they need here, mate. They need an absolute home run. Let's see if they can get it. Who have you got going at 5?
I think the Giants' biggest need is offensive lines. So I've got them going there. And the pure size and athleticism of Evan Neal, offensive tackle from Alabama, is going to be too hard to pass up. He is a massive dude. He's 6'7". He's 280 pounds.
He's every inch of nope.
He's just an absolute mauler. And for the Giants, he's a day one starter, but he's also a bit of a project. So with the right coaching, they can really train him up to become one of the best tackles in football, I think. So this would be a great pick for the Giants.
And a good start for Brian Dable as well. Now, this is the pick I'm looking forward to the most in the first round, not because I'm a Panthers fan, because you very happily wear that title, my friend. It's because my team, the Dolphins, I know I'm wearing a Chargers jersey at the moment, but supporting the second team during the draft since we don't have a pick in the top 100. This is the pick I'm looking forward to the most because, number one, there is a very real chance your team goes rogue, which would make me very happy. And 2, you've actually got a scan for your arm by the time that we think the Panthers will make their pick. I'll actually know it before you, and whether I send you a message that's truthful or not will remain to be seen. But number one, what do you hope they don't do? And then who do you think they go with?
So what I hope they don't do is I don't want Kenny Pickett. I don't.
Why not? So the rumor is that you might be taking a quarterback because,
yes,
let's face it, Sam Darnold, like me in a bodybuilding contest, is not the answer. So why don't you want Kenny Pickett?
We had a Kenny Pickett clone as our starting quarterback 2 years ago. Kenny Pickett is the white Teddy Bridgewater. And I'll tell you why. Which is
not what we want at pick 6.
No, and I'll tell you why. They've both got small hands.
Mm-hmm.
They can both scramble without being athletic. They both lack arm strength.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both high floor, low ceiling players. So Kenny Pickett can come in his rookie year and be good. fantastic. Could even be an upgrade on Sam Darnold. But where is his room for growth? He's not going to develop into being a top 10 quarterback. So what's the point? I just wouldn't understand the pick there. We so desperately need offensive line help. And I think that's where we go with pick 6. And I hope that's where we go with pick 6. So a great result for us would be Charles Cross, offensive tackle from Mississippi State. He was the left tackle in the air raid offense at Mississippi State. So he's probably the best pass protector in the draft. And from what I've heard on Panthers fan pages and stuff like that, front office really is falling in love with Charles Cross. So if he is there at 6, I can see us taking him.
And if people are wondering what I'm bringing to the show, since you're the expert, it's stuff like this. Is it fair to say if you don't take him, you'll be cross?
Pick 7 is the Giants again.
It's the Giants again, yeah.
So with their second pick, if this guy falls to 7, they will be stoked. I'm not sure he does, but I've got him falling to 7, and it's Sauce Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. The New York Giants hired the defensive coordinator from the Ravens, Wink Martindale, and his scheme revolves around press man coverage at the cornerback position, something that they don't have at the moment. And that is Sauce Gardner's absolute calling card. It's what he's best at. Didn't allow a touchdown in coverage in his college career, which is just an insane stat. I think he's clearly the best corner in the draft. And if the Giants can land Evan Neal and Sauce Gardner, they will be in a brilliant position at the end of day 1.
Yeah, they absolutely will be in an outstanding spot. Now, I say this in all seriousness, wherever he ends up, do they put Sauce on the back of his jersey? They have to. That is marketing 101, surely.
It'd be really cool.
They need to. This is just what Big Dazzling's bringing. Let's go to Atlanta, mate, who Matt Ryan leaving was a bit of a surprise, and then where he ended up, you've spoken on the podcast about how you feel about that, but let's hope you've got a bit more positive feeling about who the Falcons take here.
Their wide receiver room is absolute garbage at the moment.
You know what I like about you, Smithy? It's you don't just let it all out at once. You really can keep things bottled up. You remain level, but no, it's trash. So they need to fix it.
They have nothing there of any use for poor Marcus Mariota. If they don't do anything about it, Kyle Pitts will have 300 targets next year. But I have them taking Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from Ohio State. He's not my favorite wide receiver in the draft, but I think he's the most rounded wide receiver in the draft and maybe the best week 1. So he's someone that can just take the bulk of the offensive load. He's got a very good all-round game, and it would be nice to have him paired with Kyle Pitts and at least give Mariota a chance of being somewhat successful next year.
I like it, and I like the way you phrase that. So we're a quarter of the way through. So if you're enjoying the content, sorry to our podcast listeners, but click that like button. We are trying to get more coverage on YouTube, mate. So if you're enjoying it so far, what you agree with, what you disagree with, comment below. Let us know what you think of Daz's jokes. I can handle it. I was a chef for 6 years, so I can take all sorts of criticism. Let's go to the Seahawks, mate, who received this pick in the Russell Wilson trade. And it's fair to say that they're going through a rebuild and need to upgrade quickly.
Yeah, and the slide stops here, I think. It'll be Kayvon Thibodeau, edge from Oregon. Was the consensus number 1 overall pick for a lot of the college season. Was probably the best player in college up until his ankle injury. Did he come back too early from the injury and that stopped his production? Maybe. There's also a couple of small red flags personality-wise with him that have seen him slide down draft boards, but the talent is there. It's on tape. Seattle need desperate help on the defensive line, and I think he would be a massive inclusion for that Seattle Seahawks defense.
And they desperately need it, let me tell you. Let's go to pick 10, the Jets. They're picking for the second time, and they're one of the franchises you put under the pump. So they can't just go one home run. They're going to need a couple of beauties here. So who is the second player that the Jets pick up on day 1?
Just before I get to the pick, there's a lot of talk that they might trade this pick to San Francisco for Deebo Samuel. So that would be interesting because I do have them taking a receiver at 10, and it's Jameson Williams. I just think, and this is my favorite receiver in the draft, is very similar to Jalen Waddle last year. And
Penguin.
For those of you who were around for last year's draft coverage, you would know that I was in love with Jalen Waddle and still am. He's one of my favorite players in the league. So the similarities are scary. They've both got game-changing speed that you just can't teach. And I think for someone like Zach Wilson, being able to just dump the ball off to someone like Jameson Williams and let him do the work would be absolutely huge for the Jets. So pick 10, Jameson Williams, wide receiver, Alabama.
Just quickly before we move on, do you love that GMs say we've got no intention to trade and then it usually gets done anyway? I saw a stat on Twitter that said the last 40 GMs that said we're not trading that player, 26 of them got done within 72 hours. So I get where they're going with it, but like, are they? What's the point if they're gonna listen to offers? I think it's a really mature way to look at it because you can still turn offers down. Like,
yeah,
it's a bit silly.
I think they're a bit naive in thinking if they say they're not going to trade him, it'll rise their trade value. But everyone can see through it, I think.
I think so. Do you take pick 10 for Debo if you're San Francisco? In a word,
with others. Yes, I think there would have to be a bit more complexity to the trade. But if that was your base swap with extras on the side, I probably would, yeah.
You'd entertain it. Beautiful. All right, let's get to Washington. You're not a fan of the Commander's nickname, but we need you to be a fan of the pick, mate. So who have they got? The nation's capital.
I'm going with someone who a lot of people are tipping to be the first receiver off the board. I'm not quite as high on him as that, but I think Drake London, wide receiver from USC, will be the pick here. Add something to the wide receiver room that they don't have at the moment, and that's a big body. Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel are both quite slight-framed, smaller wide receivers. So Drake London's the best part of 6'5". He's a big body, can go up and catch a jump ball. The only reason I'm a bit skeptical on him is his archetype of receiver hasn't worked coming out of the draft. Obviously, N'Keal Harry was taken by the Patriots, and that's probably the closest comp I have for him. Both big-bodied, dominant college wide receivers who could go up and get the jump ball, but with the quality of cornerback in the NFL, they need to have a bit more in their arsenal than just the jump ball. But I think Drake London does have that, and he would be a very good addition for Carson Wentz in that Washington offense.
Beautiful. And we love a shit nickname on TDs and threes. We've got plenty. We've got Herbert fully loaded, in which I'm representing tonight. Surely Drake London's called the Pom in this city, surely.
It just writes itself, mate.
It does. It really does. It's not a lot of brain power from Daz, but then again, welcome. Let's go to the Vikings, mate, who I actually predicted to win the NFC North, and I'm still pretty confident on that. And for a franchise going as well as they are, I'm not going to overreact or underreact, but they're going okay. They look like they're on the right track to me. Pick 12 for me is automatically a win, and I think this is a pick that if they nail is only going to accelerate them further. So who have you got?
If this guy slides to 12, they need to run up and hand the card in as fast as they can before anything else happens.
They've got some history with this.
Yeah, if 2 years ago you told me that this guy would be projected to go pick 12, I would have slapped you in the face because he was arguably one of the best cornerback prospects in the college scene at that stage. And it's Derek Stingley Jr., cornerback from LSU. His freshman year was ridiculous. He was unbelievable. His coverage skills were just off the charts. Quite a few concerns with his body in the last 2 years. Hasn't played a lot of football. There's also some effort concerns, takes plays off. But if the Minnesota Vikings can get him playing like his freshman self, he could be one of the best players in the draft. So that would be huge. And it fits a massive need. Minnesota are very thin in the secondary. He's got the perfect mentor there in Patrick Peterson, who also went to LSU. So I think Minnesota could be a place that gets the best out of Derek Stingley Jr.
Bang, Vikings fans get excited. Let's go to the Texans, their second pick. So far, they've got a lot of needs, so I don't think they can really lose here unless they really don't do their homework. But luckily for us, you have, mate, so go for it.
Best player available, it's Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame. A lot of people hyping him up as a top 5 pick. I don't quite see it that way. Safety, probably one of the least valuable positions to draft in the first round, in my opinion, with running back. He's not a traditional over-the-top safety. He's more of a box, strong safety. But he is probably the best player on the board right now. And for the Texans, who just lost Justin Reed to the Kansas City Chiefs, I think he slides straight in as a starter there and can play a big impact. He's not going to come out and be the best safety in the NFL day one, like some people think he might, but he can definitely contribute on that defense straight away.
Match made in heaven. Let's go to Baltimore, who they had everyone injured, including the wait staff in their restaurants in Baltimore. It was unfortunate, but this is a good chance for them to bounce back, and this is a really good pick to do it with.
The biggest athletic freak in the draft, Jordan Davis, defensive tackle from Georgia. His combine testing is just scary. Okay. It's scary. A man his size should not be able to move the way that he moves. And I think it's a perfect fit for Baltimore because they do like to rotate their defensive linemen in and out. Jordan Davis didn't play a lot of snaps at Georgia, but when he did, was highly effective. And I think he could play the same role here. If he can develop a pass rush, he's going to be a scary prospect in the next 2 or 3 years.
I like it, and I think Ravens fans will as well. And you never really expect combine stuff to go viral, but Instagram literally exploded with Jordan Davis's combine stuff, which was good to see. All right, let's get to the Eagles, mate, who did some interesting pick swaps in this draft, but they picked up pick 15 from the Dolphins, my boys, who, let's face it, went all in free agency. But what are the Eagles doing here in the draft?
I think cornerback is a need for them. And I really like Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington.
The Duff Man.
He's a very versatile defensive back, can play boundary, can play in the nickel. He can also go out to safety if needed. So he's got a lot of versatility, very skilled. People are worried about his size and length, but he's very quick on tape. So that'll help him in that position. And I think at this stage, he can come in and play a really big part in all different sorts of roles in that Philadelphia defense.
Beautiful. I like it. The Saints have got the halfway point, mate. They got this pick from the Colts and then the Eagles. So this is the halfway point of the first round. Where do the Saints go from here?
Wide receiver help is needed in New Orleans, and they get it here. Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State. Name a more iconic duo than Ohio State receivers going to New Orleans. It just seems to happen all the time. Michael Thomas, who was there, went to Ohio State. And I think that this is a good fit next to him. He's a good deep threat. He can get down the field. And we know that Jameis Winston, one of his biggest strengths is throwing the deep ball. So I think he'll fit really well into the offensive scheme. And
the problem with Jameis sometimes is it doesn't matter who he's throwing it to in the deep ball, but he's good at slinging it, and it's fun to watch if you don't have emotional investment. Let's get to the Chargers, mate, a pick 17. And a franchise this good having a pick this high doesn't seem fair, but that's the nature of the beast. I think it's a massive year for the Chargers, who get to top up with a top quality talent. So who do they go with?
Yeah, and this would be another great pick if they can get it done. The only weakness I can see on the Chargers roster at the moment is probably Storm Norton at right tackle. And they're going to draft his replacement here, Trevor Penning, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa, and pairing him with Rashawn Slater, who was their first-round pick last year, who was an all-pro in his rookie year. I think that would be a deadly duo.
Frightening for sure. The Eagles pick 18, picking for the second time in only a few picks. Is this a case when you've got two picks so close together, it's best player available, or do they still have a positional need?
I actually had a tough time making this pick. Out of all the picks in the first round, this one probably took me the longest to settle on, but I went with Devontae Wyatt, defensive tackle from Georgia. Again, a defensive lineman from Georgia being an athletic freak. It's the third that we've seen, and he fits the bill. He's not as big as Jordan Davis, but he offers more pass rush ability. They're quite similar, in my opinion. And for the Eagles, I think they got some older players on that defensive line. Fletcher Cox is getting older. So he would be a match made in heaven to replace him. So I just like the fit there.
Beautiful. I like the fit as well. The Saints, again, with their interesting pick swap that we've discussed a little bit, but they've got 19. Again, it's almost the same question. Do they have a positional need or is the best player available?
They've got a positional need and it would be offensive tackle after Teron Armstead left, but I just wasn't comfortable drafting an offensive tackle here. I don't think the tackles remaining on the board justified a selection this high. So I settled on taking George Karloftis, edge from Purdue. At some stages throughout the college season, he was a projected top 5 pick. He slid because he didn't test overly well at the combine. But his tape's really good. He's going to be a solid rotational piece to start the season and could develop into a starter. So I think the Saints would be pretty happy.
I think they would be genuinely astounded with the quality of their haul so far. Let's go to pick 20, the Steelers. Now, this is probably the most change that they've been through in a while, purely and simply because Big Ben isn't there and he's been the mainstay for so long. So in this new age of Steelers football, what do they do with pick 20?
This is probably the pick I've been looking forward to talking about the most. And
you've got that gleeful look.
I've got them taking Malik Willis, quarterback from Liberty, at this spot. Rumor on the street is Mike Tomlin is in love with Malik Willis. And it's hard not to see why, because Malik Willis just absolutely reeks of potential. And they signed Mitch Trubisky to a 2-year deal. That can be purely as a bridge. Give Malik Willis at least this year to sit, to learn, to progress himself as a quarterback, and then maybe have a competition for year 2 starter. I think Mitch Trubisky is a good enough vet to mentor Malik Willis. And with the receiving core that the Steelers have, and with Najee Harris there as well, if you can get a high upside quarterback like Willis here, you could set your offense up for the next 5 or 10 years.
Can they be bad just for a little bit, the Steelers? Like, they're just consistently good all the time. I know if there's any Pittsburgh fans watching at the moment, they'll hate me saying that, but like, it's not fair. And this is coming from a Dolphins fan, so don't take it personally. You've been better than us for ages. Let's go to New England, mate. Now, we said it during our sort of off-season review. It felt like the Patriots didn't do anything at all. So fingers crossed they do something worthwhile at pick 21.
Yeah, I think they get their linebacker of the future, the first linebacker off the board, Devin Lloyd, linebacker from Utah. And he just looks like a Patriot. He's big, he's athletic, he's fast, he's everything that Bill Belichick likes in a linebacker. He's definitely the best linebacker in the draft, in my opinion. And I can see Bill Belichick running up to the stand to hand this card in and making him a Patriot.
Beautiful. I like it. Hopefully the Patriots do too. Pick 22 belongs to the Packers after the Devontae Adams trade to the Raiders, which we fawned over. They've got 22 and 28 here, the Packers. So the last first-round draft pick they had, mate, in Jordan Love caused a bit of controversy. I don't think these two will. Who have you got going at 22?
Yeah, and if this isn't a wide receiver, then I think the whole NFL world is going to be stunned. And if Jameson Williams is my favorite wide receiver, this guy is stalking him to become that. It's Treylon Burks, the wide receiver from Arkansas. He's big, he's fast, he makes plays. People talking about his testing and he didn't run well, but if you look at his tape, he is burning past cornerbacks and safeties. So speed won't be an issue for him. And arguably for a first-round wide receiver, could be one of the best scenarios to walk into playing with Aaron Rodgers. He would instantly become their wide receiver 1. So, yeah, this is just a match made in heaven for both parties, I think.
Yeah, I think they'd both walk away genuinely happy. The Cardinals are at 23, whose offseason has been marred by Kyler staying or Kyler going, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the newest youngster to walk into Phoenix. Who do you think that is?
They need secondary help. And I think Andrew Booth Jr., the cornerback from Clemson, would come in and do that. One of my favorite players in the draft, this guy, he is a genuine ball hawk. And he is one that, Daz, I spoke to you about at the start of the college season, all the way back in October, I think it was, and saying that this guy is going to be a first-round pick. He's the real deal. I think he will be a first-round pick. The Cardinals need better cornerback help, and I think he'll do that. I think he can have a similar impact to what Asante Samuel Jr. did with the Chargers last year.
Bang, there we go. And Arizona would be thrilled. 24, America's team, Dem boys. I know TD will be watching right now. Shout out to the great man. I wonder if you'll stitch him up, but I feel like you're a man of integrity and better than TD and I, and you'll go with the best option. Who have you got at 24?
I've done a lot of mock drafts, and a lot of the times I have teams picking different players, going for different combinations, seeing what works better. Every single mock draft I've done, I've had Dallas taking Daxton Hill, the safety from Michigan. I just love what he brings. He's so versatile. And the Cowboys haven't had a great safety in a long, long time. I think he can come in instantly and be one of the captains of this defense. He can play corner if you want. You can stick him in the box at linebacker if you're going for a smaller, faster package. He's a big hitter. I think he's everything that Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones would want in a defensive back. So I love this pick.
And I think the Cowboys will as well. Buffalo have got pick 25 recently, signed Stephon Diggs to a long-term deal. So congrats to the Bills. But who walks in the door, and how confident are you that they play early?
There's only two possible positions they take here, in my opinion, offensive line or cornerback. I've got them taking offensive line. Zion Johnson, guard from Boston College. I just think there were times last year where Josh Allen could not get anything going because of the offensive line. We spoke about it quite a few times on the podcast when reviewing games, and it just seemed like some weeks Josh Allen was constantly under pressure. I think Zion Johnson instantly comes in, becomes a rock at either left or right guard, whichever side they want him to play. He played right guard in college, but I'm sure he could move to the left side, no problems. It would just make a really good team even better.
It really would. The Bills frightening this year, even in a stacked AFC. Let's get to the Bucks at pick 27. I mean, if you really need to be told what happened during their offseason, you've been living under a rock. It was a pretty quiet in terms of recognition for their draft last year. They just, like, it sounds a bit silly, but they took their picks and just ran with them. It wasn't an overly analyzed draft. I've got a feeling this pick might be the same, but who do you think Tampa take with 27?
We missed 26, Tennessee Titans.
Oh, 26 we have. Goodness me. Daz, where are we at? Tell you what, Smithy, you're getting the 3 votes today, mate. My apologies. The Titans, well, that's just how boring I find them, frankly, because Ryan Tannehill is doing my head in as a fan, or former fan, considering he was a Dolphin. Apologies to the Titans fans. Let's do this in actual order and go 26 first, mate. Who have you got?
Speaking of Ryan Tannehill, I'm drafting.
I don't think they can draft him again.
I'm drafting his potential replacement.
Bang.
I've got the Titans taking Desmond Ridder, quarterback from Cincinnati.
Oh, boy.
He is a winner. It's as simple as that. He's a very smart quarterback. He's shown he's got the arm talent. Even if he doesn't start year one, I think the Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee experiment is going to be coming to an end soon, because he just has not been able to get it done. That playoff game last year probably put the nail in his coffin, unless he can have a big year this year. But I saw someone mock a quarterback to Tennessee in a mock draft I watched, and I've fallen in love with the idea ever since. So Ridder to the Titans for me.
Let's just move seamlessly into pick 27, since I did the intro about a minute too early, but go for it.
Yeah, I've got them taking Kenyon Green, offensive guard from Texas A&M. Ali Marpet retired, which was a big loss. And they also lost Alex Kappa, who signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. So 2 of their most important offensive linemen gone. I think you can replace one of them here straight away with Kenyon Green. Just a really solid lineman. So perfect fit.
Beautiful. I like it. Let's go to the Packers at 28. Dazzling nailed the order there and flying home, mate, on the straight. The Packers, it's their second pick in 7. They took care of the wide receiver. Where do they go next?
I think they go Boye Mafe here, edge from Minnesota. Older, I think he's 23, so a bit like Jermaine Johnson up the top. He's a bit more experienced, may not have the crazy upside, but he will come in day one and be a very solid piece for that defense. Probably didn't get to the quarterback enough last year. Pair him alongside Rashawn Gary, and that's a really nice little combination there for Green Bay.
Who will start day one on fire. The Kansas City Chiefs have got the next 2 picks, mate, at 29 and 30, so you can lump these two together, and they had a much louder offseason than I think we all expected going in.
Yeah, I think it was probably the most surprising offseason move, the Tyreek Hill trade. So I'm drafting the person they're going to try and replace Tyreek Hill with, and that's Jahan Dotson from Penn State, the wide receiver. He has got the speed. He's also got a really, really good catch radius for someone so small. So he's not going to come in and beat Tyreek Hill, but he should be able to contribute to the offensive system there. And I've got them taking David Ajabo with pick 30, the edge from Michigan, who was a projected top 10 pick until he tore his Achilles at his pro day. Won't be able to play this year, but we know that the Chiefs are going to be competing for years to come. So I think having 2 first-round picks, if they can get Dotson and plug him into the offense, they can take the risk on Ajabo, rehab him this year with their medical staff. And then if he can get back anywhere close to what he was at in his time at Michigan, they're going to get a potential top 10 player at pick 30. So I think that would be a very good strategy for the Chiefs.
I like it, and I think the Chiefs will as well. 2 to go, mate, and then we're out of here. Let's start with the Bengals at pick 31, the Cinderella story from last year.
Yeah, I think they need to replace Eli Apple, and I'd be doing that with Kaiir Elam, cornerback from Florida. Has some injury problems, but has shown that when he is healthy, he is a very good player and worthy of a first-round pick. So if they can get his best, it'll be a big upgrade.
I'm really disappointed that there wasn't anyone in this draft that's like Kyle Orange or something, so we could actually compare apples to oranges, but that's just a little bit of fun for me. I need to break Smithy once per recording. That's the rule here on YouTube. Let's finish this off, mate. Otherwise, you might snap. And that's with Detroit, who get the pick from the Super Bowl champs in the Rams and the last pick of the first round.
They get their defensive captain here, and he will instantly become Dan Campbell's favorite player, and it's Nakobe Dean, the linebacker from Georgia. He just seems like a Dan Campbell player, honestly. Their off-ball linebackers aren't great at the moment. He can instantly come in, and we saw what he did with that Georgia defense. There's clips everywhere on YouTube and social media just of him leading on the field. I think he would come in and instantly do that at the NFL level. And Dan Campbell would be frothing at the mouth if he could get Nakobe Dean with the last pick of the first round.
Yep, I think they would be very happy, not as happy as we are, mate. I think you've absolutely smashed that. Daz has been rusty, but I'll work on it. You can sign us off in your signature style, mate, but it's been a pleasure, and we are so pumped for this draft.
Oh, cannot wait for the draft. It's going to be awesome. We will have some post-draft content for you guys. We've got a few ideas. TD will be on board with that, so we'll get the big fella involved. But thank you for listening/watching to this mock draft. Comment down below which picks you liked, which picks you would change, who you hope your team drafts. We can't wait to talk about it in the comments and in further episodes. But until then, stay safe, everyone.